Welcome back, everyone. Let me start with a question that I want you to hold in your mind for this entire video. What is the difference between managing risk and just worrying about threats? Many security professionals spend their days worrying. They worry about the next vulnerability. They worry about the latest zero-day. They worry about what the attackers will do next. But worrying is not managing. Managing risk is about making smart, informed decisions that enable the business to move forward. That is what CISM Domain 2 is all about. It is about mastering information risk management. It is about aligning security, strategy, and survival. Let me tell you a story that illustrates why this matters. A few years ago, a company I worked with had a dilemma. They had a critical vulnerability in a legacy system that would cost $2 million to patch. The board asked me, "Do we spend the money?" I asked them, "What is the risk of not spending it?" We calculated the potential loss. We looked at the likelihood of exploitation. We considered the business impact. And we discovered that the risk of not patching was actually less than the cost of patching. So we accepted the risk. We monitored it. We put compensating controls in place. And we used the $2 million to fund a new initiative that generated $10 million in revenue. That is risk management in action. It is not about eliminating risk. It is about making smart decisions. It is about enabling the business to take calculated risks. Here is the thing. Many professionals struggle with this domain because they think it is just about technical vulnerabilities. It is not. It is about business decisions. It is about understanding the organization's risk appetite. It is about speaking the language of the board. It is about connecting security to strategy. That is why CISM is different. It is not about teaching you how to be a better technician. It is about teaching you how to be a better leader. So what are we going to cover in this video? We will start with the strategic triad: governance, risk management, and compliance. We will talk about the boundaries of survival, risk capacity, risk appetite, and risk tolerance. We will break down the anatomy of risk, assets, vulnerabilities, threats, and the equation that ties them together. We will explore the threat landscape, APTs, insider threats, and opportunists. We will contrast inherent risk and residual risk. We will look at qualitative and quantitative risk analysis. We will dive into the quantitative engine, SLE, ARO, and ALE. We will cover the 4 T's of risk response. We will examine the paradox of controls and the concept of secondary risk. We will discuss the accountability divide. We will distinguish KRIs from KPIs. We will tackle the compliance versus business reality check. And we will end with the CISM Master Framework, the continuous cycle that keeps your organization safe and competitive. Here is how this works. For each concept, I will explain it like I am sitting next to you. I will tell you stories and give you real-world examples to make it stick. Then I will give you questions. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. I will tell you the right answer and, more importantly, why the wrong answers are wrong. Then I will share the traps that even experienced managers fall into, and 3 tips to lock the knowledge in. Risk management is not about avoiding risk. It is about taking the right risks safely. Stick with me, and by the end of this video, you will know exactly how to align security, strategy, and survival. Let us get started. Now that you understand why risk management is about enabling the business, let me give you a framework that ties everything together. Governance, risk management, and compliance. The GRC triad. These 3 elements work together to keep the organization safe, competitive, and accountable. Let me define each one clearly using the roles you see here. Governance is the apex. It sets the strategic direction. It allocates resources. It establishes ultimate accountability. Governance comes from the board and senior leadership. They decide what the organization wants to achieve. They set the risk appetite. They make the big decisions. Governance answers the question, are we doing the right things? It is not about how you do something. It is about why you do it. Risk management is the engine room. It is the continuous, pragmatic process of identifying threats and applying prioritized controls based on business objectives. Risk management takes the board's strategic direction and turns it into actionable decisions. It answers the question, are we secure enough to operate? It is about balancing risk and reward. It is about making smart, informed decisions that enable the business to move forward. Compliance is the validator. It is about documenting, monitoring, and enforcing adherence to external laws and internal policies. Regulations like GDPR, HIPAA, and SOX set mandatory requirements. Internal policies set the organization's own standards. Compliance answers the question, can we prove we follow the rules? It is about evidence. It is about audit trails. It is about being able to demonstrate that you are doing what you said you would do. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine you are driving a car. Governance is the map. It tells you where you are going. Risk management is the steering wheel and the brakes. You adjust speed, you navigate turns, you respond to hazards. Compliance is the dashboard. It tells you your speed, your fuel level, your engine temperature. It gives you the data you need to know if you are operating within safe parameters. You need all three. Governance without risk management is strategy without execution. Risk management without compliance is activity without accountability. Compliance without governance is checking boxes without direction. From a business perspective, GRC is not just a security framework. It is a business framework. It helps the organization achieve its objectives while managing uncertainty and demonstrating accountability. Now, let me ask you a question. A board of directors sets the organization's risk appetite and approves the security strategy. What element of the GRC triad are they performing? A. Risk management. B. Compliance. C. Governance. D. Audit. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. Governance. The board is setting the strategic direction and establishing accountability. Option A, risk management, is incorrect because risk management is about the day-to-day execution of controls, not setting the overall direction. Option B, compliance, is incorrect because compliance is about documenting and proving adherence to rules, not setting strategy. Option D, audit, is incorrect because audit is a verification function, not an element of the GRC triad itself. So the correct answer is C. Now, let me ask you another question. A security team implements a new control to address a specific risk. They document the control and create evidence for an upcoming audit. Which elements of the GRC triad are involved? A. Governance only. B. Risk management and compliance. C. Compliance only. D. Governance and risk management. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. Risk management and compliance. Risk management is involved because the team is addressing a risk. Compliance is involved because they are documenting the control for audit evidence. Option A, governance only, is incorrect because governance is about setting direction, not executing controls or documenting evidence. Option C, compliance only, is incorrect because risk management is also involved in implementing the control. Option D, governance and risk management, is incorrect because compliance is also involved in documenting the control for audit purposes. So the correct answer is B. Now a third question. A compliance audit reveals that a policy is not being followed, but the policy does not align with the organization's current risk appetite. What is the most appropriate action? A. Enforce the policy strictly. B. Review the policy and align it with the current risk appetite. C. Ignore the finding. D. Blame the employees. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. Review the policy and align it with the current risk appetite. If a policy does not align with risk appetite, it is a governance issue. You must adjust the policy or adjust the risk appetite. Option A, enforce the policy strictly, is incorrect because enforcing an outdated policy that does not align with risk appetite creates friction and resistance. Option C, ignore the finding, is incorrect because ignoring an audit finding is not acceptable and could lead to regulatory issues. Option D, blame the employees, is incorrect because the root cause is a misaligned policy, not employee behavior. So the correct answer is B. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company has strong compliance documentation and rigorous risk management processes. However, the board is not engaged in security strategy, and the CISO operates with limited direction. What is the primary gap? A. Risk management is not effective. B. Compliance is not enforced. C. Governance is weak. D. The controls are insufficient. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. Governance is weak. The board is not engaged, and the CISO lacks strategic direction. Without strong governance, risk management and compliance are operating without a compass. Option A, risk management is not effective, is incorrect because the scenario states that risk management processes are rigorous. Option B, compliance is not enforced, is incorrect because compliance documentation is strong. Option D, the controls are insufficient, is incorrect because controls are not mentioned as insufficient, the gap is at the governance level. So the correct answer is C. Now, let me share 3 traps that even experienced managers fall into. First, treating GRC as separate functions. They are not. Governance, risk management, and compliance must work together. You cannot have one without the others. Second, assuming that compliance equals governance. Compliance is part of governance, but it is not the whole picture. Governance is about direction and accountability. Compliance is about proving you follow the rules. Third, forgetting that the board owns governance. The CISO advises, but the board decides. You cannot implement a risk management program without board direction. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. First, memorize the 3 roles: governance, direction, accountability, risk management, execution, prioritization, compliance, documentation, enforcement. Second, on the exam, if you see a question about setting direction or risk appetite, think governance. If you see a question about implementing controls, think risk management. If you see a question about proving adherence, think compliance. Third, ensure your GRC program is integrated. Governance sets the direction. Risk management executes. Compliance validates. Now that the strategic triad is clear, let me introduce 3 concepts that define the boundaries within which your organization operates: risk capacity, risk appetite, and risk tolerance. Let me introduce 3 concepts that define the boundaries within which your organization operates: risk capacity, risk appetite, and risk tolerance. These 3 terms are often confused. They are not the same. Understanding the difference is critical for the CISM exam and for making strategic decisions. Let me define each one clearly. Risk capacity is the existential limit. It is the absolute maximum risk the organization can financially absorb before bankruptcy or total shutdown. If you exceed your risk capacity, the organization fails. Risk capacity is fixed. It is determined by the organization's financial resources, its reserves, its ability to survive a catastrophic loss. Risk appetite is the strategic choice. It is the board-approved comfort zone. It is the amount of risk the organization is willing to accept in pursuit of business growth. The board sets the risk appetite. It is expressed in terms of total loss limit. For example, the board might say, we are willing to accept up to $10 million in total losses. Risk appetite is a strategic decision. It guides the organization's overall risk-taking behavior. Risk tolerance is the operational variance. It is the acceptable deviation for a specific threat. For example, the organization might tolerate up to 4 hours of system downtime for a specific application. Risk tolerance is more granular. It is applied to specific risks, specific assets, specific scenarios. Tolerance is derived from appetite. You cannot have a tolerance that exceeds the appetite. Here is a crucial point. Risk appetite must be distributed. A manager cannot accept a $50,000 risk if their specific delegated slice is only $10,000. The board sets the overall appetite. That appetite is then distributed across business units, projects, and decisions. Each manager operates within their delegated authority. If you exceed your delegated slice, you must escalate. From a business perspective, these three concepts are essential for decision-making. They provide the boundaries within which the organization can operate. They prevent managers from taking risks that could threaten the organization's survival. Now, let me ask you a question. A company sets a board-approved policy that they are willing to accept up to $10 million in total losses from a specific type of cyber attack. What is this called? A. Risk capacity. B. Risk appetite. C. Risk tolerance. D. Risk threshold. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. Risk appetite. Risk appetite is the strategic choice of how much risk the organization is willing to accept in pursuit of business growth. Risk capacity is the absolute limit. Risk tolerance is the operational variance for a specific threat. Risk threshold is not a standard term in this context. So the correct answer is B. Now, let me ask you another question. A manager is authorized to accept up to $10,000 in risk for a specific project. The manager approves a decision that exposes the organization to $15,000 in risk. What is the primary issue? A. The manager's risk tolerance is too low. B. The manager exceeded their delegated risk authority. C. The risk capacity is too high. D. The risk appetite is too low. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. The manager exceeded their delegated risk authority. Risk appetite must be distributed. Managers operate within their delegated authority. If you exceed your delegated slice, you must escalate. Option A is incorrect because tolerance is about operational variance, not delegated authority. Option C is incorrect because capacity is the absolute limit. Option D is incorrect because appetite is a strategic decision, not a management issue. So the correct answer is B. Now a third question. A hospital has a policy that it can tolerate up to 2 hours of downtime for its patient record system during a disaster. What is this an example of? A. Risk appetite. B. Risk capacity. C. Risk tolerance. D. Risk transfer. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. Risk tolerance. Risk tolerance is the acceptable deviation for a specific threat. Here, the specific threat is downtime for the patient record system. Risk appetite is the overall strategic choice. Risk capacity is the existential limit. Risk transfer is a response strategy, not a boundary. So the correct answer is C. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company has a risk capacity of $100 million. The board sets a risk appetite of $10 million. A business unit manager proposes a new project that would expose the organization to $8 million in potential losses. The manager's delegated authority is $5 million. What should the manager do? A. Approve the project because it is within the risk appetite. B. Approve the project because it is within the risk capacity. C. Escalate the decision to the next level of authority because the risk exceeds their delegated slice. D. Reject the project because it exceeds the risk appetite. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. Escalate the decision to the next level of authority because the risk exceeds their delegated slice. The risk is within the appetite, $8 million is less than $10 million, and within capacity, $8 million is less than $100 million. However, the manager's delegated authority is only $5 million. They cannot approve a risk that exceeds their authority. Option A is incorrect because the manager does not have the authority. Option B is incorrect for the same reason. Option D is incorrect because the risk is within the appetite. So the correct answer is C. Now, let me share 3 traps that even experienced managers fall into. First, confusing risk appetite with risk tolerance. Risk appetite is the big picture. Risk tolerance is the specific application. They are not the same. Second, assuming that risk appetite is the same as risk capacity. Risk appetite is what you are willing to accept. Risk capacity is what you can absorb. They are different. Third, forgetting that risk appetite must be distributed. Managers cannot take risks that exceed their delegated authority. The board sets the overall appetite, but it must be cascaded down. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. First, memorize the hierarchy: capacity, existential limit, appetite, strategic choice, tolerance, operational variance. Second, on the exam, if you see a question about the absolute limit of survival, think risk capacity. If you see a question about board-approved comfort zone, think risk appetite. If you see a question about a specific threat deviation, think risk tolerance. Third, ensure that risk appetite is communicated and delegated. Managers must know their authority limits. Now that these boundaries are clear, let's break down what risk is actually made of: assets, vulnerabilities, threats, and the equation that ties them together. Let me break down what risk is actually made of. Risk is not a single thing. It is the combination of 3 elements: assets, vulnerabilities, and threats. When a threat exploits a vulnerability against an asset, risk materializes. Without any one of these 3, there is no risk. Let me define each one clearly. Asset is what we are trying to protect. Assets include data, reputation, people, intellectual property, and physical infrastructure. The business owns these assets. They are the reason we have security in the first place. Here is a critical insight: shadow IT is a major risk. Shadow IT refers to cloud services, websites, or applications that business units spin up on their own, often using a credit card, without IT's knowledge. These are critical assets that often escape inventory. If you do not know an asset exists, you cannot protect it. Vulnerability is the weakness in our armor. A vulnerability is not just unpatched code. It can also be flawed processes, like offboarding delays that leave former employees with active access. It can be cultural weaknesses, like employees who bypass security controls because they are inconvenient. Vulnerabilities are the gaps that attackers look for. Threat is the adversary or the vector. Who or what is attacking? Threats can be insiders, advanced persistent threats, hackers, or natural disasters like hurricanes. The threat is the danger. The vulnerability is the weakness. The asset is the target. The equation: risk equals likelihood times impact. This is the fundamental formula. Risk materializes only when a threat successfully exploits a vulnerability against an asset. If there is no threat, there is no risk. If there is no vulnerability, there is no risk. If there is no asset, there is no risk. From a business perspective, this equation helps you prioritize. You cannot protect everything equally. You focus on high-value assets with high vulnerabilities and credible threats. Now, let me ask you a question. A company has a critical database with sensitive customer information. The database has a known unpatched vulnerability. There are currently no known threats targeting this vulnerability. What is the risk? A. High, because the asset is valuable. B. Medium, because the vulnerability exists. C. Low, because there is no active threat. D. High, because the vulnerability is critical. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. Low, because there is no active threat. Risk requires all 3 elements: asset, vulnerability, and threat. Without a threat, the risk is low. Option A is incorrect because asset value alone does not create risk. Option B is incorrect because a vulnerability alone does not create risk. Option D is incorrect because the vulnerability is not being exploited. So the correct answer is C. Now, let me ask you another question. A marketing team spins up a new web application on a cloud platform using a corporate credit card, without informing IT. What is the primary risk? A. The application is not secure. B. The application is a shadow IT asset that has not been inventoried or protected. C. The application is too expensive. D. The application is not compliant. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. The application is a shadow IT asset that has not been inventoried or protected. Shadow IT assets often escape inventory. If you do not know an asset exists, you cannot protect it. Option A is true, but it is a symptom of the larger issue. Option C is not the primary risk. Option D is also a symptom. So the correct answer is B. Now a third question. A former employee still has active access to the company's network 3 months after termination. What type of vulnerability does this represent? A. A technical vulnerability. B. A process vulnerability. C. A threat. D. An asset. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. A process vulnerability. The offboarding process failed. This is not a technical vulnerability like unpatched software. It is a process weakness. Option A is incorrect because it is not a technical flaw. Option C is incorrect because the former employee is not actively attacking. Option D is incorrect because the former employee is not an asset. So the correct answer is B. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company has a high-value asset with a critical vulnerability. There is a known threat actor actively targeting this type of vulnerability. The company has implemented compensating controls that reduce the likelihood of exploitation. What is the primary factor that determines whether risk materializes? A. The asset value. B. The vulnerability severity. C. The threat actor's capability and the effectiveness of the controls. D. The company's budget. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. The threat actor's capability and the effectiveness of the controls. Risk equals likelihood times impact. The likelihood is determined by the threat actor's capability and the effectiveness of the controls. Asset value and vulnerability severity contribute to impact, but the likelihood is driven by the threat and the controls. Option A is incorrect because asset value alone does not create risk. Option B is incorrect because vulnerability severity alone does not create risk. Option D is incorrect because budget is not a factor in the risk equation. So the correct answer is C. Now, let me share 3 traps that even experienced managers fall into. First, ignoring shadow IT. Many organizations do not know what assets exist outside IT's control. You cannot protect what you do not know you have. Second, treating vulnerabilities only as technical issues. Vulnerabilities can be process weaknesses, cultural issues, or human factors. Third, forgetting that risk requires all 3 elements. Without an asset, a vulnerability, or a threat, there is no risk. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. First, maintain a comprehensive asset inventory. Include shadow IT assets. Know what you are protecting. Second, assess vulnerabilities holistically. Include technical, process, and cultural weaknesses. Third, monitor the threat landscape. Understand who is targeting you and what methods they use. Now that you understand the building blocks of risk, let's move on to the threat landscape, APTs, insider threats, and opportunists. Let me take you through the threat landscape. Who or what is actually attacking your organization? Understanding your adversaries is essential for effective risk management. You cannot defend against a threat you do not understand. Let me walk you through 3 major categories of threats. First, advanced persistent threats, or APTs. APTs are state-sponsored, highly funded adversaries. They are not your typical hackers. They have resources, time, and patience. Their goal is long-term stealth. They do not want to be detected. They want to stay inside your network for months or even years, quietly exfiltrating data. APTs follow a well-defined life cycle. Typically, it is a 7-stage process. First, they compromise an initial foothold, often through a phishing email or a vulnerable external system. Then they establish a foothold, creating a persistent presence. They escalate privileges to gain higher access. They conduct reconnaissance to map your network. They move laterally to reach their target. They maintain their presence, ensuring they are not kicked out. Finally, they exfiltrate the data. This is not a smash and grab. This is a patient, methodical operation with the goal of staying undetected for as long as possible. Second, the insider threat. Insiders are trusted employees. They are already past the perimeter firewall. They possess legitimate access. That makes them extremely dangerous. Insiders can be malicious, they intentionally steal data or cause damage. Or they can be negligent, they make mistakes, they fall for phishing, they leave sensitive data exposed. The danger is high velocity. An insider can cause massive damage in minutes because they do not need to bypass controls. Third, opportunists and script kiddies. These are low-skill attackers who use automated scanning tools. They are not targeting you specifically. They are scanning millions of IP addresses, looking for unlocked digital doors. Most breaches are not sophisticated movie plots. They are automated scripts checking for default passwords, unpatched systems, or misconfigured servers. Opportunists are the most common threat. They are also the easiest to defend against. Simple controls like patching, strong passwords, and proper configuration stop them cold. From a business perspective, understanding the threat landscape helps you allocate resources. You cannot protect against every threat equally. You need to understand which threats are most likely and which would cause the most damage. Now, let me ask you a question. A nation-state actor spends months inside a company's network, quietly moving laterally and exfiltrating data. What type of threat is this? A. Insider threat. B. Opportunist. C. Advanced persistent threat, APT. D. Script kiddie. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. Advanced persistent threat, APT. APTs are state-sponsored, patient, and stealthy. Insiders are employees. Opportunists are low-skill. Script kiddies are automated scanners. Option A is incorrect because an insider is an employee. Option B is incorrect because opportunists are not sophisticated. Option D is incorrect because script kiddies are low-skill. So the correct answer is C. Now, let me ask you another question. A former employee uses their still active credentials to delete critical files after being terminated. What type of threat is this? A. APT. B. Insider threat. C. Opportunist. D. Script kiddie. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. Insider threat. The attacker is a trusted employee with legitimate access. APTs are state-sponsored. Opportunists and script kiddies are external attackers. Option A is incorrect because the attacker is not state-sponsored. Option C is incorrect because the attack is not automated scanning. Option D is incorrect because script kiddies are low-skill. So the correct answer is B. Now a third question. A company is breached by an attacker who simply scanned the internet for exposed databases with default credentials. What type of threat is this? A. APT. B. Insider threat. C. Opportunist. D. Nation-state. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. Opportunist. The attacker used automated scanning to find an easy target. APTs are sophisticated. Insiders are employees. Nation-state is another term for APT. Option A is incorrect because the attack is not sophisticated. Option B is incorrect because the attacker is external. Option D is incorrect because nation-state attacks are more complex. So the correct answer is C. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company experiences a breach. The attacker used a phishing email to compromise a single user, then moved laterally for weeks, escalated privileges, and exfiltrated sensitive intellectual property. The attacker did not cause any disruption and was never detected until a third party notified the company. What type of threat does this most likely represent? A. Opportunist. B. Insider threat. C. Script kiddie. D. APT. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is D. APT. The attacker was patient, stealthy, and focused on exfiltration. They used a multi-stage approach and were not detected for weeks. Opportunists and script kiddies are not this sophisticated. Insiders do not need to phish themselves. Option A is incorrect because opportunists are low skill. Option B is incorrect because the attacker is external. Option C is incorrect because script kiddies do not operate this way. So the correct answer is D. Now, let me share 3 traps that even experienced managers fall into. First, assuming that all attackers are highly sophisticated. Most breaches are caused by opportunists exploiting simple vulnerabilities. Second, focusing only on external threats and ignoring insider threats. Insiders are already past the perimeter. Third, forgetting that APTs are patient. They are not in a rush. They will wait months to achieve their goal. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. First, understand the threat landscape. Know who is targeting you and what methods they use. Second, balance your defenses. Protect against external threats, but also monitor for insider threats. Third, focus on the basics. Most breaches are caused by simple vulnerabilities. Patch, configure, and monitor. Now that you understand the threat landscape, let's move on to inherent and residual risk. Let me introduce 2 concepts that are essential for making smart risk decisions. Inherent risk and residual risk. They are not the same. Understanding the difference is critical for the CISM exam and for justifying your security investments. Let me define each one clearly. Inherent risk is the raw, naked danger of an activity before any controls are applied. It is the risk that exists in its purest form. Think of it as launching a cloud platform with 0 security layers. No firewalls. No encryption. No access controls. No monitoring. The inherent risk is the worst-case scenario. It is what you would face if you did nothing at all. Mitigation is the application of controls. This is where you implement safeguards, policies, and firewalls to reduce the likelihood or impact of a risk. Mitigation is what you do. It is the action you take to make the risk more manageable. Residual risk is the leftover risk. It is the risk that remains after you have applied all your controls. No control is perfect. There is always some risk left over. Residual risk is what you live with after you have done everything reasonable to protect yourself. Here is the golden rule. Residual risk must always be less than or equal to risk appetite. If your residual risk exceeds your risk appetite, you are taking more risk than the board is willing to accept. You must either implement additional controls or accept that you are operating outside the boundaries set by leadership. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine you are driving a car. The inherent risk is driving without a seatbelt, without airbags, without brakes. That is the raw danger. You mitigate by wearing a seatbelt, by having airbags, by maintaining your brakes. The residual risk is the small chance that you still get into an accident despite all these precautions. That residual risk is acceptable because it is within your risk appetite. You are willing to accept the small chance of an accident in exchange for the benefit of driving. From a business perspective, this distinction is crucial for budgeting. Inherent risk tells you the worst-case scenario. Residual risk tells you what you actually face after investing in controls. The gap between inherent and residual risk is the value of your controls. That is how you justify your budget. Now, let me ask you a question. A company launches a new cloud application with no security controls. What is this called? A. Residual risk. B. Inherent risk. C. Mitigation. D. Risk appetite. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. Inherent risk. Inherent risk is the raw danger before any controls are applied. Residual risk is what remains after controls. Mitigation is the action. Risk appetite is the board-approved comfort zone. Option A is incorrect because residual risk is after controls. Option C is incorrect because mitigation is the action. Option D is incorrect because appetite is the limit. So the correct answer is B. Now, let me ask you another question. After implementing a firewall, encryption, and access controls, a company still faces a small risk of a breach. What is this called? A. Inherent risk. B. Residual risk. C. Risk appetite. D. Risk capacity. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. Residual risk. Residual risk is the risk that remains after controls are applied. Inherent risk is before controls. Risk appetite is the limit. Risk capacity is the existential limit. Option A is incorrect because inherent risk is before controls. Option C is incorrect because appetite is the limit. Option D is incorrect because capacity is the existential limit. So the correct answer is B. Now a third question. A company calculates that the inherent risk of a new project is $10 million. After implementing controls, the residual risk is $2 million. The board's risk appetite is $3 million. What should the company do? A. Accept the residual risk because it is within the risk appetite. B. Implement additional controls to reduce residual risk further. C. Reject the project because the inherent risk is too high. D. Increase the risk appetite to $5 million. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is A. Accept the residual risk because it is within the risk appetite. The residual risk is $2 million, which is less than the appetite of $3 million. The company can accept it. Option B is unnecessary because the risk is already within appetite. Option C is incorrect because inherent risk is not the deciding factor. Option D is incorrect because the appetite does not need to be increased. So the correct answer is A. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company has a risk appetite of $5 million. A project has an inherent risk of $20 million. After implementing $15 million worth of controls, the residual risk is $5 million. What is the value of the controls? A. $5 million. B. $10 million. C. $15 million. D. $20 million. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. $15 million. The value of the controls is the difference between inherent risk and residual risk. $20 million minus $5 million equals $15 million. Option A is the residual risk. Option B is incorrect. Option D is the inherent risk. So the correct answer is C. Now, let me share 3 traps that even experienced managers fall into. First, confusing inherent risk with residual risk. Inherent risk is before controls. Residual risk is after controls. They are not the same. Second, forgetting that residual risk must be within risk appetite. If residual risk exceeds appetite, you have a problem. Third, assuming that controls eliminate all risk. They do not. There is always some residual risk. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. First, always calculate both inherent and residual risk. Know the worst-case scenario and the actual risk after controls. Second, ensure that residual risk is within risk appetite. If it is not, you must act. Third, Use the gap between inherent and residual risk to justify your budget. Show the board the value of your controls. Now that you understand inherent and residual risk, let's look at how you actually measure risk, qualitative and quantitative analysis. Let me talk about how you actually measure risk. You cannot manage what you cannot measure. Risk analysis is the process of understanding the nature and level of risk so you can make informed decisions. There are two primary methods, qualitative analysis and quantitative analysis. Each has its strengths and weaknesses. You need to understand both for the CISM exam and for real-world decision-making. Let me define each one clearly. Qualitative analysis. Qualitative analysis uses scenarios, expert judgment, and heat maps with categories like high, medium, and low. It is subjective. It relies on the experience and intuition of the people performing the assessment. The advantage of qualitative analysis is speed. It is fast. You can do it without massive amounts of data. It is also easy for non-technical executives to digest. A heat map with red, yellow, and green zones is intuitive. Qualitative analysis is excellent for intangible risks like brand toxicity or reputational damage. These are risks that are hard to quantify in dollars. The disadvantage is subjectivity. Two different teams might come up with two different results. It lacks financial precision. You cannot use qualitative analysis to justify a specific budget request. It gives you a general direction, not a precise number. Quantitative analysis. Quantitative analysis uses hard data, historical frequencies, and precise monetary values. It is objective. It relies on numbers. The advantage is objectivity. You get a clear, defensible number. You can calculate the annualized loss expectancy. You can show exactly how much a control will save. This provides clear cost-benefit justification for security budgets. You can demonstrate return on investment. The disadvantage is that it is time-consuming. It requires vast amounts of accurate historical data. If you do not have good data, you cannot do quantitative analysis. For rare events, you may not have enough data to be statistically meaningful. From a business perspective, you will often use both. Qualitative analysis is great for the board. It gives them a high-level view of risk. Quantitative analysis is great for the CFO. It gives them a number to put in a budget request. Most organizations use a hybrid approach. Now, let me ask you a question. A risk assessment team gathers a group of experts who rank risks as critical, high, medium, and low based on their experience. What type of analysis is this? A. Quantitative. B. Qualitative. C. Hybrid. D. Statistical. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. Qualitative. It uses categories and expert judgment, not hard numbers. Quantitative would involve dollar figures. Hybrid is not a standard term. Statistical would require data sets. Option A is incorrect because no numbers are used. Option C is incorrect because hybrid is not a standard term. Option D is incorrect because statistical requires data. So the correct answer is B. Now, let me ask you another question. A company calculates that the annualized loss expectancy from a data breach is $500,000. They compare this to the $300,000 cost of implementing a new control. What type of analysis is this? A. Qualitative. B. Delphi. C. Quantitative. D. Heuristic. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. Quantitative. Because they are using actual dollar values and mathematical comparisons. The Delphi method is a qualitative technique. Heuristic is a rule of thumb approach. Option A is incorrect because numbers are used. Option B is incorrect because Delphi is a qualitative technique. Option D is incorrect because heuristic is a rule of thumb. So the correct answer is C. Now a third question. A company needs to assess the risk of reputational damage from a data breach. They do not have historical data on breach costs. Which method is most appropriate? A. Quantitative. B. Qualitative. C. Both equally. D. Neither. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. Qualitative. Qualitative analysis is excellent for intangible risks like reputational damage. You can use expert judgment and scenarios to assess the risk. Quantitative requires data, which you do not have. Option A is incorrect because you lack data. Option C is incorrect because quantitative is not feasible. Option D is incorrect because qualitative is feasible. So the correct answer is B. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company uses qualitative analysis to identify risks and prioritize them. They then use quantitative analysis to calculate the ALE for the top 5 risks. What is this approach called? A. Qualitative only. B. Quantitative only. C. Hybrid approach. D. Heuristic approach. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. Hybrid approach. The company is using both qualitative and quantitative methods. Qualitative for identification and prioritization. Quantitative for detailed financial analysis. Option A is incorrect because quantitative is also used. Option B is incorrect because qualitative is also used. Option D is incorrect because heuristic is not the term. So the correct answer is C. Now, let me share 3 traps that even experienced managers fall into. First, thinking that quantitative is always better. Quantitative is precise, but it requires good data. Qualitative is fast but subjective. The best approach often uses both. Second, mixing the 2 methods incorrectly. You can use both in different phases, but do not combine numbers with categories without a clear methodology. Third, forgetting that qualitative still needs a structured process. Just asking, "What do you think?" without a defined scale is not reliable. You need clear definitions for high, medium, and low. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. First, know the strengths and weaknesses of each method. Use qualitative for speed and intangible risks. Use quantitative for financial justification. Second, on the exam, if you see dollar values and formulas, think quantitative. If you see words like high or low, think qualitative. That simple rule will get you through most questions. Third, in real life, use a hybrid approach. Start with qualitative to identify and prioritize risks. Then use quantitative for the most critical risks. Now that you understand how to measure risk, let's dive into the math behind quantitative risk analysis, SLE, ARO, and ALE. Let me dive into the math behind quantitative risk analysis. This is where you put numbers to risk. You need to know these formulas for the CISM exam and for making data-driven decisions. There are 3 key terms you need to understand: SLE, ARO, and ALE. Let me define each one and show you how they work together. SLE stands for single loss expectancy. This is the cost of a single event. It answers the question, how much does one incident cost? The formula is asset value times exposure factor. The exposure factor is the percentage of asset value lost in a single incident. For example, if a server is worth $10,000 and a fire destroys 50% of it, the SLE is $5,000. ARO stands for annualized rate of occurrence. This is how often the incident happens per year. If an incident happens once every 2 years, the ARO is 0.5. If it happens 10 times a year, the ARO is 10. ALE stands for annualized loss expectancy. This is the total yearly risk. The formula is SLE times ARO. This gives you the expected annual loss from that risk. For example, if the SLE is $5,000 and the ARO is 2, the ALE is $10,000. Here is the business rule. Never spend more on a security control than the ALE it is designed to prevent. If a control costs $12,000 per year and the ALE is $10,000, the control is not financially justified. You are spending more to protect than the risk itself. The ALE sets the maximum budget for any countermeasure. Let me give you a practical example. A company has 100 laptops. Each laptop is worth $1,500. Historically, 10 laptops are stolen each year. The SLE is $1,500. The ARO is 10. The ALE is $15,000. This means the company can expect to lose $15,000 per year due to laptop theft. If a security control costs $5,000 per year to reduce theft by 50%, the ALE would drop to $7,500. The reduction is $7,500, and the control costs $5,000. The net benefit is $2,500. That is a good investment. From a business perspective, quantitative analysis gives you the numbers you need to justify your budget. The ALE is your baseline. It tells you what you are losing today. The reduction in ALE tells you the value of your controls. Now, let me ask you a question. A server is valued at $50,000. A fire is expected to destroy 30% of the server if it occurs. What is the single loss expectancy, SLE? A. $15,000. B. $35,000. C. $50,000. D. $5,000. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is a $15,000. SLE equals AV times EF equals $50,000 times 0.3 equals $15,000. Option B would be 70%. Option C is the full value. Option D would be 10%. So the correct answer is A. Now, let me ask you another question. A company estimates that the single loss expectancy for a data breach is $200,000. Based on industry data, they expect one breach every 5 years. What is the annualized loss expectancy, ALE? A. $200,000. B. $40,000. C. $1 million. D. $20,000. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. $40,000. ALE equals SLE times ARO. ARO equals 1/5 equals 0.2. $200,000 times 0.2 equals $40,000. Option A is the SLE. Option C would be SLE times 5. Option D would be SLE times 0.1. So the correct answer is B. Now a third question. A security control costs $25,000 per year. The ALE of the risk without the control is $30,000 per year. With the control, the ALE drops to $5,000 per year. Is the control cost effective? A. Yes, because the net benefit is $0. B. No, because it costs $25,000. C. Yes, because it reduces the ALE. D. No, because the ALE after the control is still positive. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is a yes, because the net benefit is $0. The reduction in ALE is $30,000 to $5,000 equals $25,000. The control costs $25,000. The net benefit is $0. In security, breaking even is acceptable because there may be intangible benefits like reputation. Option B is incorrect because the cost is justified. Option C is true but incomplete. Option D is incorrect because residual risk is normal. So the correct answer is A. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company has an asset worth $1 million. The exposure factor is 20%. The incident is expected to occur once every 4 years. The company is considering a control that costs $50,000 per year and reduces the exposure factor to 5%. What is the net benefit of the control? A. $25,000. B. $50,000. C. $75,000. D. $100,000. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is that the control is not cost-effective. The reduction in ALE is $37,500, and the control costs $50,000. The net benefit is minus $12,500. Option A, B, C, and D are all incorrect. So the correct answer is that the control is not cost-effective. Now, let me share 3 traps that even experienced managers fall into. First, confusing SLE with ALE. SLE is the cost of one incident. ALE is the cost per year. They are not the same. Second, forgetting that ALE sets the maximum budget. You should never spend more to mitigate a risk than the ALE. Third, using incorrect exposure factors. The EF is the percentage of asset value lost, not the full value. Overestimating EF leads to overinvestment. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. First, memorize the formulas in order: AV times EF equals SLE, SLE times RO equals ALE. Second, on the exam, when you see numbers, write them down and do the math step by step. Third, remember that the ALE is the maximum budget for a countermeasure. If a control costs less than the ALE reduction, it is justified. Now that you know how to measure risk, let's look at what you actually do with that information, the 4 T's of risk response. Once you have identified and assessed a risk, you have 4 strategic options. These are the 4 T's of risk response: terminate, treat, transfer, and tolerate. You need to know each one and when to apply them. The CISM exam will test your ability to choose the right response. Let me define each one clearly. Terminate, eliminate the risk entirely. This means you stop the activity that creates the risk. You shut down the system. You discontinue the product. You exit the market. Termination is the only response that completely removes the risk. But it also removes any benefits that came with the activity. You terminate when the risk is too high and cannot be reduced to an acceptable level. Treat, implement controls to reduce the risk. This is the most common response. You apply safeguards, policies, and controls to lower the likelihood or the impact. You install a firewall. You patch a vulnerability. You train your employees. Treatment is about reducing the risk to an acceptable level. You treat when the risk is worth taking but needs to be managed. Transfer, shift the financial burden to a third party. The most common example is cybersecurity insurance. You pay a premium, and if a breach occurs, the insurance company pays part of the cost. You can also transfer risk through outsourcing. But here is the catch: you can transfer financial risk, but you cannot transfer accountability. If a vendor has a breach, your customers will still blame you. Transfer is about shifting the financial impact, not the responsibility. Tolerate, accept the risk. This is a conscious, documented decision to take no action. You tolerate when the cost of a control exceeds the potential loss, or when the risk is within the organization's risk appetite. Tolerate must be documented. Ignoring a risk is not tolerating. Tolerating is a deliberate management decision. From a business perspective, choosing the right response requires a clear understanding of the risk and the business context. You do not treat every risk. You do not terminate every risky activity. You balance risk and reward. Now, let me ask you a question. A company decides to purchase cyber liability insurance to cover potential losses from a data breach. What risk response is this? A. Terminate. B. Treat. C. Transfer. D. Tolerate. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. Transfer. They are shifting the financial risk to the insurance company. They are not reducing the likelihood of a breach, just covering the cost. Terminate would be stopping the activity. Treat would be implementing controls. Tolerate would be doing nothing. So the correct answer is C. Now, let me ask you another question. A company identifies a legacy system that cannot be patched and contains sensitive data. They decide to shut down the system and migrate the data to a new platform. What risk response is this? A. Terminate. B. Treat. C. Transfer. D. Tolerate. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is A. Terminate. By shutting down the system, they eliminate the risk entirely. Treat would be adding controls. Transfer would be insurance. Tolerate would be doing nothing. So the correct answer is A. Now a third question. After a risk assessment, management determines that the cost of protecting a low-value asset exceeds the value of the asset itself. They decide to take no action but document the decision. What risk response is this, and what is required? A. Terminate, requires system shutdown. B. Treat, requires technical controls. C. Transfer, requires a contract. D. Tolerate, requires documented management approval. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is D. Tolerate, requires documented management approval. Tolerate must be a conscious, documented decision. Ignoring a risk is negligence, not tolerating. Terminate would be shutting down the system. Treat would be adding controls. Transfer would be insurance. So the correct answer is D. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company has a risk that is within its risk appetite. The cost of controls is higher than the expected loss. However, the risk has a high reputational impact. Which response is most appropriate? A. Terminate. B. Treat. C. Transfer. D. Tolerate. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is D. Tolerate. The risk is within appetite. The financial cost of controls is higher than the loss. However, the reputational impact is a concern. Tolerate with monitoring is appropriate. Terminate would eliminate the activity and its benefits. Treat would be overinvesting. Transfer would not address reputational impact. So the correct answer is D. Now, let me share 3 traps that even experienced managers fall into. First, confusing tolerating with ignoring. Tolerating is a conscious decision. Ignoring is negligence. Always document your decision. Second, thinking that transfer removes all responsibility. You can transfer financial risk, but you cannot transfer accountability. If a vendor has a breach, your customers will still blame you. Third, assuming that termination is always the best option. Termination removes risk, but it also removes benefits. You must weigh the cost of the activity against the cost of the risk. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. First, memorize the 4 T's: terminate, eliminate, treat, reduce, transfer, share, tolerate, accept. Second, on the exam, look for keywords. Insurance means transfer. Shutdown means terminate. Controls mean treat. Documented decision means tolerate. Third, remember that risk responses are not mutually exclusive. You can treat and transfer. You can treat and tolerate. The right response often combines multiple options. Now that you understand the 4 T's, let's look at the paradox of controls, the unintended consequences of the controls you implement. Let me talk about something that surprises even experienced managers. Sometimes, the cure is worse than the disease. When you implement a control to address one vulnerability, you can inadvertently create a brand new vulnerability. That is secondary risk. It is the risk that arises from the control itself. Let me give you 2 examples. Example 1, physical controls. Imagine a bank vault. To prevent internal theft, the bank implements a dual control system. 2 people must be present to open the vault. That perfectly mitigates the risk of one person stealing the cash. But what happens if one keyholder is stuck in traffic? The vault cannot be opened. The bank cannot serve its customers. The dual control system has created a new risk, an availability risk. That is secondary risk. Example 2, technical controls. Multi-factor authentication, or MFA, is a great control. It stops password theft. But what happens if the MFA provider has an outage? The entire workforce is locked out of the system. The business cannot operate. MFA has created a new risk, an availability risk. That is secondary risk. This is the paradox of controls. You implement a control to solve one problem, and you create another. The key is to anticipate secondary risk before you implement the control. From a business perspective, this means you must always assess the full impact of a control. Do not just look at the primary risk. Look at the secondary risks. Ask yourself, what could go wrong with this control? What new vulnerabilities does it create? Now, let me ask you a question. A company implements dual control to prevent internal theft. However, if one keyholder is unavailable, the vault cannot be opened. What type of risk is this? A. Inherent risk. B. Residual risk. C. Secondary risk. D. Transferred risk. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. Secondary risk. Secondary risk is the risk created by the control itself. Inherent risk is the original risk. Residual risk is the risk that remains after controls. Transferred risk is risk shifted to a third party. So the correct answer is C. Now, let me ask you another question. A company implements MFA to prevent account compromise. However, the MFA provider experiences an outage, locking out all employees. What is the primary issue? A. The MFA provider is unreliable. B. The company did not anticipate secondary risk. C. The employees are not trained. D. The MFA is not necessary. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. The company did not anticipate secondary risk. The MFA provider's outage is the secondary risk. Option A is a symptom, not the root cause. Option C and D are not the primary issue. So the correct answer is B. Now a third question. A company is considering implementing a new access control system to prevent unauthorized access. What should the company do before implementation? A. Ignore potential issues. B. Assess the secondary risks of the new control. C. Implement it immediately. D. Only consider the primary risk. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. Assess the secondary risks of the new control. You must anticipate what could go wrong with the control itself. Option A is reckless. Option C is premature. Option D is incomplete. So the correct answer is B. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company implements a new firewall rule to block a specific type of attack. The firewall rule is too restrictive and blocks legitimate traffic, causing a critical business application to fail. What is the primary lesson? A. The firewall is misconfigured. B. The company did not assess secondary risk. C. The attack was not a threat. D. The application is too sensitive. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. The company did not assess secondary risk. The firewall rule created a secondary risk, blocking legitimate traffic. Option A is a symptom. Option C is false. Option D is not the primary issue. So the correct answer is B. Now, let me share 3 traps that even experienced managers fall into. First, assuming that a control has no downside. Every control has secondary risks. You must anticipate them. Second, implementing controls without testing them first. Test controls in a controlled environment before deploying them. Third, forgetting that secondary risk can be more severe than the primary risk. The cure can be worse than the disease. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. First, always assess secondary risk before implementing a control. Ask, what could go wrong with this control? Second, test controls before full deployment. Use a pilot environment. Identify issues before they become problems. Third, monitor controls after implementation. Look for unintended consequences. Adjust as needed. Now that you understand the paradox of controls, let's look at the accountability divide: who actually owns the risk? Let me talk about something that is often misunderstood in risk management. Who actually owns the risk? Many people assume that the security team owns the risk. They do not. The security team implements controls. They advise. They monitor. But they do not own the risk. The business owns the risk because they own the reward. That is the accountability divide. There are two distinct roles, the risk owner and the control owner. Let me define each one. The risk owner is the business leader. This is the VP of sales, the VP of marketing, the head of operations. They are accountable for the business outcome. They understand the value of the data. They understand the impact of losing that data. They have the authority to make decisions about risk. The risk owner decides whether to accept, mitigate, or transfer the risk. They hold the budget. They can approve spending on controls. They can decide to accept the risk and move forward. And they take the ultimate blame if a catastrophic breach ruins their business unit. Here is the key insight. The business owns the risk because they own the reward. If the business benefits from taking a risk, they must also accept the responsibility for that risk. The security team cannot own a risk they do not benefit from. The control owner is the IT leader. This is the person responsible for implementing and maintaining the controls that mitigate the risk. The control owner is accountable for the effectiveness of the controls. They ensure that controls are properly configured, monitored, and tested. They report on control performance to the risk owner. The control owner does not decide whether to accept the risk. They implement the controls that the risk owner has approved. They provide technical expertise. They advise on the feasibility of controls. But the decision to accept or mitigate the risk belongs to the risk owner. Here is the critical distinction. The risk owner decides. The control owner executes. The risk owner is accountable for the business outcome. The control owner is accountable for the control effectiveness. They are different roles, and both are essential. From a business perspective, this means that risk decisions must be made by business leaders, not just by security professionals. The CISO advises. The risk owner decides. The control owner implements. Now, let me ask you a question. A VP of sales decides to accept a risk to launch a new product faster. Who is the risk owner? A. The CISO. B. The VP of sales. C. The security team. D. The control owner. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. The VP of sales. The VP of sales is the business leader accountable for the outcome. The CISO advises but does not own the risk. The security team implements controls. The control owner implements controls. So the correct answer is B. Now, let me ask you another question. A security administrator implements a new firewall rule to reduce the risk of unauthorized access. Who is the control owner? A. The VP of sales. B. The CISO. C. The security administrator. D. The board of directors. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. The security administrator. The control owner is the IT leader responsible for implementing and maintaining the control. The VP of sales is the risk owner. The CISO advises. The board sets the risk appetite. So the correct answer is C. Now a third question. A risk owner decides to accept a risk because the cost of controls is too high. The control owner advises that the controls are not effective. What should happen? A. The risk owner overrides the control owner. B. The control owner implements the controls anyway. C. The risk owner makes the final decision after considering the control owner's advice. D. The CISO makes the decision. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. The risk owner makes the final decision after considering the control owner's advice. The risk owner has the authority to decide. The control owner provides technical advice. Option A is incorrect because the risk owner should consider the advice. Option B is incorrect because the control owner does not have the authority to decide. Option D is incorrect because the CISO advises but does not decide. So the correct answer is C. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company has a risk owner who consistently accepts risks without consulting the control owner. The control owner is concerned that the controls are not effective. What is the most appropriate action for the control owner? A. Override the risk owner's decision. B. Escalate the issue to the CISO. C. Document the concerns and escalate to the risk owner. D. Accept the decision and move on. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. Document the concerns and escalate to the risk owner. The control owner has a duty to advise the risk owner. Option A is incorrect because the control owner does not have the authority to override. Option B is not the primary step. Option D is incorrect because the control owner has a duty to advise. So the correct answer is C. Now, let me share 3 traps that even experienced managers fall into. First, assuming that the CISO owns the risk. The CISO advises. The risk owner owns the risk. Second, confusing the risk owner with the control owner. The risk owner decides. The control owner implements. Third, forgetting to document risk acceptance. Undocumented risk acceptance is not acceptance. It is negligence. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. First, identify the risk owner and the control owner for each critical risk. Ensure both understand their roles. Second, provide clear risk information to risk owners. Use business language, not technical jargon. Third, document all risk acceptance decisions. Ensure the board is informed. Now that you understand the accountability divide, let's look at how you predict the future, the difference between KPIs and KRIs. Let me talk about 2 types of metrics that are essential for risk management. Key performance indicators and key risk indicators. They are often confused. They are not the same. Understanding the difference is critical for the CISM exam and for managing risk proactively. Let me define each one clearly. KPIs, key performance indicators. KPIs are lagging metrics. They look in the rearview mirror. They measure how well you performed a task in the past. They answer the question, how did we do? Examples of KPIs include, we successfully blocked 5 malware infections last month. That is a KPI. It tells you about past performance. It does not predict the future. It tells you what happened. KRIs, key risk indicators. KRIs are leading metrics. They are the temperature gauge. They predict future danger before an incident occurs. They enable proactive defense. They answer the question, are we at risk? Examples of KRIs include, the time it takes us to apply critical patches has increased by 50%. That is a KRI. It is a warning sign. It tells you that your risk of exploitation is increasing. Another example, 40% of employees failed the recent phishing simulation. That is a KRI. It predicts a higher likelihood of a successful phishing attack. Here is the key difference. KPIs measure past performance. KRIs predict future risk. You need both. But you must use them differently. From a business perspective, KRIs are more valuable for proactive risk management. They give you early warning. They allow you to take action before an incident occurs. KPIs are useful for evaluating past performance, but they do not prevent incidents. Now, let me ask you a question. A security dashboard shows that the team blocked 5 malware infections last month. What type of metric is this? A. KRI. B. KPI. C. Leading indicator. D. Predictive metric. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. KPI. It measures past performance. It is a lagging metric. KRIs are leading indicators. Option A is incorrect because KRIs predict future risk. Option C is incorrect because leading indicators are KRIs. Option D is incorrect because predictive metrics are KRIs. So the correct answer is B. Now, let me ask you another question. A security analyst notices that the time to apply critical patches has increased by 50%. What type of metric is this, and what does it indicate? A. KPI, the team is performing well. B. KPI, the team is not performing well. C. KRI, the risk of exploitation is increasing. D. KRI, the company has already been breached. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. KRI, the risk of exploitation is increasing. The increase in patch time is a leading indicator. It predicts a higher likelihood of a breach. Option A and B are incorrect because it is not a KPI. Option D is incorrect because it does not indicate a breach has occurred. So the correct answer is C. Now a third question. A company tracks the percentage of employees who failed a phishing simulation. The failure rate is 40%. What type of metric is this, and what action should the company take? A. KPI, report it to the board. B. KRI, it predicts a higher risk of a phishing attack, the company should increase training and monitoring. C. KPI, ignore it. D. KRI, it means a breach has already occurred. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. KRI, it predicts a higher risk of a phishing attack, the company should increase training and monitoring. The failure rate is a leading indicator of future risk. Option A is incorrect because it is not a KPI. Option C is incorrect because it should not be ignored. Option D is incorrect because it does not mean a breach has occurred. So the correct answer is B. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company has the following metrics. 1. Mean time to detect, MTTD, decreased by 20%. 2. The number of unpatched critical vulnerabilities older than 30 days increased by 30%. 3. The phishing simulation failure rate dropped from 30% to 15%. 4. The security team blocked 1,000 malware attacks last month. Which metrics are KRIs, and which are KPIs? A. 1, 2, and 3 are KRIs, 4 is a KPI. B. 1 and 4 are KPIs, 2 and 3 are KRIs. C. 1 and 3 are KPIs, 2 and 4 are KRIs. D. All are KPIs. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. 1 and 4 are KPIs, 2 and 3 are KRIs. MTTD decreasing is a performance indicator, KPI. Malware blocked is past performance, KPI. Unpatched vulnerabilities increasing is a leading indicator of risk, KRI. Phishing failure rate dropping is a leading indicator of risk reduction, KRI. Option A is incorrect because MTTD is not a KRI. Option C is incorrect because malware blocked is not a KRI. Option D is incorrect because not all are KPIs. So the correct answer is B. Now, let me share 3 traps that even experienced managers fall into. First, confusing KPIs with KRIs. KPIs measure past performance. KRIs predict future risk. They are not the same. Second, focusing only on KPIs. KPIs tell you what happened. KRIs tell you what might happen. You need both. Third, ignoring KRIs until it is too late. KRIs are early warning systems. If you ignore them, you will be reacting to incidents instead of preventing them. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. First, identify the KRIs that matter most for your organization. Patch time, vulnerability age, phishing failure rates, these are all leading indicators. Second, monitor KRIs proactively. Set thresholds. When a KRI exceeds a threshold, investigate and act. Third, report both KPIs and KRIs to the board. Use KPIs to show past performance. Use KRIs to show emerging risks. Now that you understand KPIs and KRIs, let's look at the compliance versus business reality check. Let me talk about a tension that every security leader faces. Compliance versus business reality. You have laws and regulations you must follow. But you also have a business to run. Sometimes these two things conflict. Understanding how to navigate this tension is critical for the CISM exam and for real-world decision-making. Let me define 2 categories of compliance. Mandatory compliance. Some laws are non-negotiable. They involve human safety, user privacy, and fiduciary duties. Examples include GDPR, CCPA, and SOX. These are laws that protect people and investors. They are not optional. Professional ethics dictate compliance regardless of cost. If you violate these, you face severe fines, legal liability, and reputational damage. There is no business case for non-compliance. Strategic non-compliance. This is a different category. For non-critical internal policies or minor external standards without safety implications, management might make a calculated decision. They might calculate that the cost of compliance is $5 million, while the maximum penalty is $200,000. A ruthless CFO might formally choose to risk the penalty. This is a real, albeit ethically fraught, business calculation. Let me give you an example. A company has an internal policy that requires all data to be encrypted. The cost of encryption for a specific legacy system is $5 million. The maximum fine for non-compliance with that specific policy is $200,000. The CFO might decide to accept the risk and pay the fine if it ever happens. That is strategic non-compliance. It is not about ignoring the law. It is about making a calculated business decision. However, this is a dangerous path. There are 2 critical considerations. First, this only applies to non-critical policies. It does not apply to laws that protect human safety or privacy. You cannot strategically non-comply with GDPR. The fines are too high, and the reputational damage is too severe. Second, the decision must be documented. It must be a conscious, informed decision by management. You cannot simply ignore a policy and hope for the best. Strategic non-compliance must be deliberate and documented. From a business perspective, this means that not every policy is equally important. Some policies are non-negotiable. Others may be negotiable. The key is to understand the difference and make informed decisions. Now, let me ask you a question. A company is considering non-compliance with an internal policy that requires all data to be encrypted. The cost of compliance is $5 million. The maximum penalty is $200,000. What is this called? A. Mandatory compliance. B. Strategic non-compliance. C. Regulatory violation. D. Ethical breach. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. Strategic non-compliance. The company is making a calculated business decision to risk a fine. Mandatory compliance would apply to laws like GDPR. Regulatory violation would be breaking the law. Ethical breach would be violating professional ethics. So the correct answer is B. Now, let me ask you another question. A company cannot comply with a specific requirement of GDPR due to technical limitations. What should the company do? A. Ignore the requirement. B. Pay the fine and continue. C. Seek legal advice and implement compensating controls. D. Stop all operations in the EU. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. Seek legal advice and implement compensating controls. GDPR is mandatory compliance. You cannot ignore it. You cannot simply pay the fine and continue. You must find a way to comply. Stopping operations in the EU is extreme. So the correct answer is C. Now a third question. A CFO proposes strategic non-compliance with an internal policy. What is the most important requirement for this decision? A. The decision must be approved by the security team. B. The decision must be documented and communicated to the board. C. The decision must be kept confidential. D. The decision must be approved by the CEO. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. The decision must be documented and communicated to the board. Strategic non-compliance must be a conscious, documented decision. Option A is incorrect because the security team advises but does not approve. Option C is incorrect because transparency is essential. Option D is incorrect because the board must be informed. So the correct answer is B. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company is considering strategic non-compliance with a policy. The cost of compliance is $2 million. The maximum penalty is $500,000. The policy is not related to human safety or privacy. What should the company consider before making a decision? A. Only the financial calculation. B. The potential reputational damage and long-term consequences. C. The opinion of the security team only. D. The cost of the fine. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is B. The potential reputational damage and long-term consequences. The financial calculation is only one factor. Strategic non-compliance can lead to reputational damage, loss of customer trust, and long-term business consequences. Option A is incomplete. Option C is incomplete. Option D is incomplete. So the correct answer is B. Now, let me share 3 traps that even experienced managers fall into. First, assuming that all compliance is optional. It is not. Some laws are non-negotiable. Second, forgetting that strategic non-compliance must be documented. Undocumented decisions are not strategic. They are negligence. Third, underestimating reputational damage. The cost of non-compliance is not just the fine. It is also the loss of customer trust and market confidence. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. First, distinguish between mandatory compliance and strategic non-compliance. Know which laws are non-negotiable. Second, document all strategic non-compliance decisions. Ensure the board is informed. Third, consider the full cost of non-compliance, financial, reputational, and operational. Now that you understand the compliance versus business reality check, let me give you a framework that ties everything together, the CISM Master Framework. We have covered a lot in this video. The strategic triad of governance, risk management, and compliance. The boundaries of survival, risk capacity, risk appetite, and risk tolerance. The anatomy of risk, assets, vulnerabilities, and threats. The threat landscape, APTs, insider threats, and opportunists. Inherent versus residual risk. Qualitative and quantitative risk analysis. The quantitative engine, SLE, ARO, and ALE. The 4 T's of risk response. The paradox of controls and secondary risk. The accountability divide between risk owners and control owners. The difference between KPIs and KRIs. And the compliance versus business reality check. Now let me give you a framework that ties everything together. This is the CISM Master Framework. It is the continuous cycle that keeps your organization safe and competitive. It has 5 steps. Step 1, define context. This is where you establish risk capacity, risk appetite, and risk tolerance. You define the boundaries within which the organization will operate. The board sets the appetite. Management distributes it. This is the foundation of everything else. Step 2, assess. This is where you identify assets, threats, and vulnerabilities. You calculate SLE and ALE. You understand the risk. You use both qualitative and quantitative analysis. You build a clear picture of what you are facing. Step 3, treat. This is where you apply the 4 T's. You terminate, treat, transfer, or tolerate. You assign business risk owners. You implement controls. You make decisions. This is where strategy meets action. Step 4, monitor. This is where you track KRIs and feed predictive data back to the executive dashboard. You monitor controls. You track risk indicators. You watch for changes in the threat landscape. You adjust as needed. Step 5, integrate. This is where you ensure that the security manager sits on the Change Advisory Board, or CAB. The CAB reviews every system update and prevents configuration drift. Integration ensures that risk management is part of every decision. Here is the final insight. Risk management is not a one-time IT project. It is a continuous, adaptive engine that safely enables the business to take profitable chances. It is not about eliminating risk. It is about managing risk so the business can move forward. From a business perspective, this framework is your roadmap. It is how you align security, strategy, and survival. Now, let me ask you a question. A company establishes its risk appetite and risk tolerance. Which step of the CISM master framework is this? A. Assess. B. Treat. C. Define context. D. Monitor. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. Define context. This is where you establish the boundaries. Assess is about identifying risks. Treat is about responding. Monitor is about tracking. Option A, B, and D are incorrect. So the correct answer is C. Now, let me ask you another question. A security manager sits on the Change Advisory Board to review system updates. Which step of the CISM master framework is this? A. Assess. B. Treat. C. Monitor. D. Integrate. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is D. Integrate. Integration ensures that risk management is part of every decision. Assess is about identifying risks. Treat is about responding. Monitor is about tracking. Option A, B, and C are incorrect. So the correct answer is D. Now a third question. A company tracks KRIs and feeds predictive data back to the executive dashboard. Which step of the CISM master framework is this? A. Assess. B. Treat. C. Monitor. D. Integrate. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. Monitor. This is where you track risk indicators. Assess is about identifying risks. Treat is about responding. Integrate is about embedding risk management into decisions. Option A, B, and D are incorrect. So the correct answer is C. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company has completed the define context, assess, and treat steps. They are now tracking KRIs and planning to integrate risk management into the Change Advisory Board. What is the primary purpose of the monitor step? A. To identify new risks. B. To implement controls. C. To track risk indicators and provide early warning. D. To document compliance. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. The correct answer is C. To track risk indicators and provide early warning. Monitor is about tracking KRIs and watching for changes. Identify new risks is assess. Implement controls is treat. Document compliance is not a step in this framework. Option A, B, and D are incorrect. So the correct answer is C. Now, let me share 3 final traps that even experienced managers fall into. First, treating risk management as a one-time project. It is not. It is a continuous cycle. Second, skipping the define context step. You cannot manage risk without knowing the boundaries. Third, forgetting to integrate. Risk management must be embedded into every decision. Here are 3 final tips to lock this in. First, follow the 5 steps in order: define context, assess, treat, monitor, integrate. Second, treat risk management as a continuous process. Revisit the cycle regularly. Third, ensure risk management is integrated into business decisions. It is not a separate function. Take this mindset into your exam and into your career. Think like a leader. Speak the language of business. Build risk management programs that enable the organization to achieve its objectives. That is what CISM is about. That is what risk management is about. That is what leadership is about. Good luck on your exam. I will see you in the next video.